Hello students, welcome to Boundless Maths, your trusted space for both maths and science. In today's video, we are going to cover transportation life process as part of chapter 5 of your class 10 science curriculum. In our previous videos, we have already covered nutrition and respiration. So if you have not gone through those two videos, go through both the videos and then continue with transportation. So before we begin with transportation, let's have a quick 2-minute recap of nutrition and respiration. So what is nutrition? We talked about, in the video we talked about autotrophic nutrition, heterotrophic nutrition, and then the role, the 3 steps of photosynthesis, role of stomata, saprophytic, holozoic and parasitic nutrition for heterotrophic organisms, and then we talked about nutrition in amoeba and paramecium. For multicellular organisms, we looked at the details of the entire process of nutrition in humans, where different enzymes and different organs have different functionalities that help in the entire process of digestion. Thereafter, we had a look at the 3 pathways for breakdown of glucose, that is respiration, differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, the ATP and ADP cycle, and then we even had a look at the difference between breathing respiration and the entire respiratory system for humans. So in today's video, we are going to continue with the transport system. Now before anything can be transported, the nutrition has taken in food and the food has been absorbed by the blood vessels. Respiration, we took in oxygen, we took in air, and oxygen has been again transferred to the blood vessels. Now the blood contains oxygen also and the simpler form of food also. So all these need to be transported to each and every cell so that every cell can break down the food in the presence of oxygen and release energy. And also the waste products that are released by all these cells, that are created by all these cells, they need to be transported back to the excretory system so that they can be thrown out. So that's why we have the transportation system in place. So what are the major components of the transportation system? The first and the foremost component is the heart. Next we have blood vessels, a network of vessels, and a system to ensure that the network is repaired if damaged. Because if we look at the heart and all the blood vessels, it is a closed system. There is no entry point, there is no exit from the transportation system. So the transportation system is a closed system that is working throughout our body, and to maintain it or to make sure that it is repaired well on time in case of a damage, there is again a process that is involved. Now this transport system, it is transporting all the materials, whether it is food or oxygen or waste materials, through the fluid connective tissue called blood. So in grade 9 you must have read about blood, the fluid connective tissue. These are the various components of blood. Plasma. Plasma is the fluid medium that carries carbon dioxide, food, salts and waste. Note here, only carbon dioxide is mentioned, not O2, because carbon dioxide is carried by the blood dissolved in the plasma, whereas O2 is carried by the red blood cells present in the blood. Then the next cells present in blood are white blood cells that help us to fight against infections, and the platelets, they help in clotting of blood. So this is the repair mechanism that works, or it comes into picture in case of damage in any part of this transport system. Now there are 2 types of blood vessels. In fact there are 3, but let's look at the main 2 types of blood vessels, arteries and veins. So what are arteries? Arteries are the blood vessels that carry blood from heart to all parts of the body, whereas veins are the blood vessels that carry blood from all parts of the body to the heart. So you can remember it like vein word ends with in, in. So that means it brings blood into the heart. So veins are the blood vessels that bring blood into the heart, and arteries are the blood vessels that take blood away from the heart. Arteries are thick walled because the blood coming out from the heart is under very high pressure, and they need to combat that high pressure. So that's why they have thick walls as compared to veins, which are thin walled, because the blood flowing in veins is not under high pressure. Next, arteries carry oxygenated blood except pulmonary artery that carries deoxygenated blood. Veins carry deoxygenated blood again except pulmonary vein that carries oxygenated blood. So we'll talk about this in detail going further. Next, arteries do not have valves because the blood is already under high pressure. So it is not going to flow back. But in case of veins, the blood is not under high pressure and it is moving towards the heart, so there are chances of backflow of blood. Right? So to prevent that backflow, veins have valves. So these are the main differences between arteries and veins, and the third kind of vessels that the network system consists of are called capillaries. So capillaries are the blood vessels that are single celled thick. Their boundary is single cell walled. Why it is single cell? Because exchange of materials has to take place across the capillaries. So veins and arteries are mainly for transportation, and exchange of materials happens through capillaries. Now heart. What is heart? Heart is the main muscular pumping organ that is going to push blood throughout our body. It is enclosed in a double membrane called pericardium. This is very important from MCQ perspective. The double membrane enclosing the heart is called pericardium. Now the heart, the structure of heart, it is divided into 4 chambers. So auricles are smaller and placed above the ventricles. Auricles are partitioned by a muscular wall called septum. So again, another very important word, what is septum? Septum is the muscular wall separating the 2 auricles. There are left and right 2 auricles. So basically the heart has 4 chambers: left auricle, left ventricle, right auricle, and this right ventricle. So this separating wall between the 2 auricles, this is called septum, and the double membrane that is enclosing this heart, double muscular membrane, this is called pericardium. So don't get confused with the 2 words, and remember, pericardium is the double membrane that encloses the heart, and septum is the muscular wall that partitions the auricles. So let's look into detail about how the heart works. So these are the basically 4 chambers of the heart. So if you can remember this diagram, it is going to help you a lot. So in this diagram there are 4 chambers of the heart mentioned here: right auricle, right ventricle, left auricle, and left ventricle. Now if you look at the auricles are the upper 2 ones. Blood is coming into the heart through the auricles and going out through the ventricles. So it is coming into the right auricle from the vena cava. There are 2 vena cavas. If you look at the structure here, one is called inferior vena cava, bringing used blood from lower parts of the body, and another is the superior vena cava, bringing bloods from upper part of the body, the parts of the body above the heart. So these 2 vena cava, they merge into the right auricle. So this is the place where blood enters into the auricles using the through the vena cava. Now after this, it goes to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the blood goes to lungs for purification, and once it has been purified, it enters again from the left auricle. From the left auricle, it goes to the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle, again it goes out through the aorta. So the veins, the vessels bringing in blood into the heart, vein is IN, they are called vena cava and pulmonary vein. The word pulmonary is related to lungs. So wherever you see pulmonary, that means there is something related to lungs being talked about. So the entire flow is like the vena cavas, they collect all the used bloods from all parts of the body and bring it to the right auricle. The right auricle moves all the blood to the right ventricle, and from there it goes to the lungs for purification. Once exchange of gases takes place around the alveoli, the oxygenated blood is pumped, goes back into the heart through a vein, because it is going into the heart through pulmonary vein, bringing back blood to the heart into the left auricle. From the left auricle, it passes on to the left ventricle, and from the aorta, it goes out to all parts of the body. So the oxygenated blood, the red part shown here is the oxygenated blood, and the blue one is the deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated just means that the amount of carbon dioxide is more in that blood, and oxygenated has more oxygen being carried by the hemoglobin. So the right side of the heart carries deoxygenated blood, and the left side carries the oxygenated blood. So if we look at the entire flow, it's something like in the lungs, exchange of gases takes place around the alveoli. Then the pulmonary vein brings the blood into the left atrium. From here it goes to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, it is thrown out under high pressure through aorta. This is spelled as aorta but pronounced as aorta. So from aorta, the blood, oxygenated blood, goes to all parts of the body where it is used up and exchange happens across the capillaries. Then from the vena cava, again the blood is collected in the right atrium, that is the upper chamber of the right side. It moves to right ventricle, and from the right ventricle again through the pulmonary artery it goes to the lungs for purification. So this is the entire flow. If you can draw this diagram and write this flow properly, it is going to help you a lot. This is very important that you understand the names of all the 4 chambers. Left side is oxygenated, right side is deoxygenated, auricles are bringing blood into the heart and ventricles are pushing it out. And this is the entire flow, how blood gets purified, what are the different chambers, how are they involved, and what are the veins and arteries involved. So these 2 are very important. This is the schematic diagram. It is not necessary to draw all these organs. This is just for you to understand that the oxygenated blood goes to the various organs where capillaries exchange happens across capillaries and used blood is pumped back to the heart. From the heart it goes to lungs for purification, comes back to the heart, and from heart again back to all parts of the body including brain and all the lower parts. So I hope this schematic diagram is also clear to you now, right? Now let's look at how these auricles and ventricles work together. What is the function of these valves that are there between the auricles and the ventricles? Why do we have valves here? So in our heart, when blood is getting collected into the atrium is collecting all the blood, so it expands. So it is collecting. Once it is full, the atrium squeezes, it contracts, and the ventricles expand. Now the blood from the atrium moves to the ventricles, right? And once the ventricles are loaded, the ventricles squeeze to throw the blood out under pressure. So to prevent the backflow of the blood from ventricles to the auricles, we have valves. So these valves close the path between the auricles and the ventricles when blood is being pushed out from the ventricles. So this prevents backflow of blood. So there can be a reasoning question on this. Why do we have valves separating the auricles and the ventricles? To prevent backflow of blood during ventricular contraction. Because the intention of ventricular contraction is to throw out blood with high pressure. Right? Now there are some more reasoning questions here. Why ventricles have thicker muscular walls? Again, why? Why do they have thicker muscular walls? Can you think of the reason? Yes. Ventricles have thicker muscular walls because they have to exert all that pressure. They have to create all that pressure and throw out blood with pressure so that it reaches all parts of the body. So that's why they have thicker muscular walls as compared to auricles, because auricles have to just collect. Again, another thing, atrium and auricles are synonymous. Both are used, both can be used. You can use atrium also, you can use auricle also. They mean the same thing. Next, heart valves between the auricles and ventricles, we just talked about it. They make sure that the blood does not flow backwards during ventricular contraction. Now different organisms have different chambered heart. For example, in mammals and birds we have 4-chambered heart. Right? So there are different chambers so that the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood does not get mixed up, and this separation that actually makes the process very efficient, right? Now there are certain organisms, reptiles and amphibians, that have a 3-chambered heart. So they can tolerate some kind of mixing of oxygenated, deoxygenated blood, so they manage with 3 chambers in their heart. Again, 2-chambered heart. Where do we have 2-chambered heart? In fish. Fish have only 2-chambered heart. Blood goes through the heart only once during the entire pumping cycle. So this is called single circulation. Like in humans, what we have seen is blood goes through the heart twice. Once when it is getting collected from the vena cava, getting pumped to the lungs, and the second time from the lungs it again enters the heart, and then it is pumped down to all parts of the body. So basically in one pumping cycle the blood entered heart 2 times. So that is called double circulation. So in fish there is just single circulation, the heart pumps the blood and it goes to the gills where oxygenation or exchange of gases takes place, and from the gills it is then transported to all parts of the body. Vertebrates, they have double circulation, that is again that the blood goes through the heart twice during one pumping cycle. Now the contraction of heart is called systole. This is a keyword you should understand how to remember. C is for contraction. Yes, C means contraction. And if I write another C in the opposite direction, it becomes S. So how do you remember? C is for S. Contraction is for systole. Systolic movement means contraction. And relaxation is diastole. So the auricles and the ventricles, they contract and relax alternately, as I just explained. When the auricle is relaxed, it is collecting blood. When it contracts, the ventricles expand to let the blood move down, and when the ventricles contract, the blood moves out of the heart. So they are alternately expanding and contracting. So when we talk of blood pressure, then we are talking about the force exerted by this blood against the wall of the arteries. So it is the arterial pressure. And what is one heartbeat? Rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the cardiac muscles. So it is rhythmic, auricles, ventricles, auricles, ventricles. So one systole and one diastole is called one heartbeat. When we say one heartbeat, it means one contraction and one relaxation of the ventricles. So when we are talking about systole and diastole, it is majorly in the context of ventricles, because it is the ventricles that are pumping blood out of the heart. So one systole and one diastole makes one heartbeat. So blood pressure is the pressure exerted by blood on the walls of the aorta, major artery, that is taking out blood from the heart and transporting to all parts of the body. So this pressure is more in arteries because arteries are taking blood out from the heart. And in the veins, because veins are bringing used blood back to the heart, veins have a lower pressure. So the blood pressure has two components, the systolic pressure and the diastolic pressure. Now as you must have learned by now, systole means contraction. C, if you join two C's back to back, one in opposite directions, it becomes S. So that means when we talk of systolic pressure, we are talking about ventricular contraction. So it is very important, it is the ventricular contraction when we are talking about systolic blood pressure. And the value of the systolic blood pressure is higher, it is 120 mm of mercury. Why it is higher? Because when the ventricles contract, they push out blood with high pressure. So that's why the systolic blood pressure is higher, it is equal to 120 mm of mercury. Now what is diastolic blood pressure? Diastolic pressure is when the ventricles diastole or the ventricles relax. So when the ventricle is relaxing, it is collecting blood, and normally blood is coming in from the vena cavas and getting collected down. So this diastolic pressure is lower, which is equal to 80 mm of mercury. Now the instrument that is used to measure these diastolic and systolic blood pressures is called sphygmomanometer. What is it called? Sphygmomanometer. Repeat, sphygmomanometer. Yes. So it is sphygmomanometer that is used to measure the systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Now the condition of high blood pressure in certain people, that is known as hypertension. It is caused by blocking of arteries. Now if the arteries, inner walls of the arteries get blocked, so they will not have enough space for blood to flow out smoothly. So that is going to exert more pressure on the walls of the arteries, and that is called hypertension. So this is the increased resistance to the flow of blood through the artery. This is called hypertension. It can even lead to rupture of an artery or internal bleeding. So that's why it is very important to address the condition of hypertension. Now apart from hypertension, there can be certain injuries that can result in loss of blood. If you get a wound or a cut somewhere, or if you fall down and you get hurt, blood starts flowing out. So what has happened is the closed transport system has got ruptured. If there is a rupture, then that means the overall pressure of the fluid in that closed system will get reduced. There will be loss of blood for sure, but the second major impact is going to be getting down of the blood pressure. The blood pressure will start to fall. So to handle this condition, platelets come into the picture. So platelets present in the blood, they start creating a clot to prevent further loss of blood. Now there is another component, fluid connective tissue, called lymph. What is lymph? From the pores of the capillaries, plasma, protein and blood cells, these three things, certain blood cells, plasma and proteins, they get into the intercellular spaces in the tissues. There are certain intercellular spaces in the tissues. So these move out from the blood vessels, from the capillaries, what all things? Plasma, proteins and blood cells, right? But RBCs are not moving out, not those blood cells. RBCs are just not moving out, RBCs stay in the blood only. So the lymph basically is colorless, it has less protein as compared to blood. So it is also a fluid that is present in the intercellular spaces. So the lymphatic capillaries, they collect all this lymph fluid and they collect and move it to the lymph vessels, which again drains it back into the blood. Now what is the use of this lymph when it is there in the intercellular spaces and then getting back into the bloodstream itself? So it carries digested and absorbed fat. This is very important. What is the function of lymph? Lymph carries digested and absorbed fat from the intestine and drains excess fluid from extracellular space back into the bloodstream. So this is the function of lymph, which is very important. What is the function of lymph? It carries digested and absorbed fats from the intestine and drains excess of fluid from the intercellular spaces back into the blood. So the main difference between lymph and blood is red in color because of the presence of hemoglobin, whereas lymph is colorless. Blood has more proteins, lymph has lesser proteins. Blood is present in the blood vessels, lymph is present in the intercellular spaces. So it is doing the job of cleaning the intercellular spaces and throwing that waste back into the blood so that it can be transported back to the excretory system for throwing out from the body. Right. So I hope it's sufficient for today, and in the next video we are going to talk about transportation in plants. So that's a smaller topic, so we'll cover it in the next video about transportation in plants. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to Boundless Maths, share the video with your friends, and till then keep learning, keep growing.